I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. Bill, the new stats out of the Labor Department as we record this report that unexpectedly jobs grew by 312,000 in the month of December. That's up from a corrected 176,000 in the month of November. Unemployment is still relatively low at 3.9%, ticked up just a little bit. But this jobs growth number shocked the experts. And I know you're going to tell me that there's nothing more common than the headline, "Economists surprised." But specifically, Bill, I'd like to ask you, what, if anything, do you think this does for President Trump's ability to work with the new Democratic-led House of Representatives?
Well, I don't know what it's going to do so much with them. It's just certainly good news for the American people. I remember for the previous administration, during the pretty much every quarter for 8 years, job numbers were lower than predicted, unexpectedly. And significantly so. And I remember Obama's enormous pride at trying to keep unemployment below 8%. And it never was. So I think that the economy and the fact that people are working, to me, is the single greatest influence on who you vote for. I think if you really get down to it, if you were unemployed before and employed now, at least for that voter and all the people in that voter's family, I think that's got to be the single most important issue. So that's certainly good news for the president. And, you know, Donald Trump has an astonishing ability to kind of needle and troll his opponents. I would like it a little better if there was a little bit more of a message behind it. And all I'm saying by that is, I think as we go into this first year of a divided Congress, it seems to me that Donald Trump should be making the case every single day, and he very well might, for all we know, that it is jobs versus the Democrats. And I would never get off that. I would ride that all the way through to November of 2020. Well, jobs versus the Democrats.
The slam against Trump, or at least the Trump economy, has been, sure, unemployment is going down and job growth has been pretty steady through the course of the year. And the stock market, up until the last month or two, had been doing pretty well. Lots of turmoil in the last month or so. But the attack, if any, used to be that wages were stagnant. However, this new report from the Labor Department says that compared to the same month last year, 2017, that wage growth, average hourly wage growth, is actually up 3.2%. How do you think that plays into the political calculus of it all?
Donald Trump versus the Democrats, and
jobs.
the Democrats versus jobs. Therefore, if A equals B and B equals C, then Donald Trump equals jobs. But here's the thing, Scotty, about the stock market and about the wage increase. I want to be very careful. Sometimes, I just make a factual statement and it causes a big emotional response in people who you think. So what I'm about to say is guarded. But what, in my opinion, while the stock market may be very volatile, and while I know a lot of people have lost a lot of money on the stock market is not generally an indicator of people whose lives are on the margin. In other words, most of the people who are affected by job growth, having a job now, didn't have one before, are not the kind of people that are investing in the stock market. And I don't want to say that the stock market is money that people don't care about losing. That's the last thing I want to say. I know a lot of retirement accounts are tied into it and so on. But it seems to me that the ability to make an investment in a stock is a relative economic luxury compared to being out of work.
Well, and it also seems,
that's
Bill,
basically what I'm trying to say. So go ahead.
I was going to say the recent volatility in the stock market seemed to have been tied to two major things. Number one was the problems with the so-called FANG companies, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, and Google.
I'd never heard them called that before. Boy.
How appropriate. And then the other aspect was this growing sense in the zeitgeist that the economy was taking a turn for the worse and that we were certainly entering into a period of perhaps a downslope to recession. With these new jobs numbers, it would seem to me that it's getting harder to make that argument.
Yes, and so just to conclude, I want to come back to that, but just to conclude what I was saying, if the criticism of if the number of people who are unemployed is going down and the number of people with jobs is increasing, then I think that's far more important to the country and far more important to the average working American than what the stock market is doing. And I also think that if it were up to me, having been out of work for long stretches being in show business and for one period during the writer's strike, utterly convinced I was never going to work again. I was out of work for 6-7 months, something like that. The fact that your wages haven't gone up is not as important. I'm speaking again from personal experience, and this is just me. But I wasn't so much upset about whether my wages were going up so much as I was worried about whether I was going to be getting any wages. So if the criticism against the Trump job numbers are that the stock market is volatile and wages were flat, turns out they're not. But let's just say that they were. I think those two criticisms pretty much pale in comparison compared to the actual achievement of having, hundreds of thousands of more people employed, which means millions of more people downstream with the families and so on, going from a situation of, desperation and dependence to some sense of hope and control over their lives again. So, I'm sorry, what was the point you just made there, just before I wrap that up?
Yeah, I was just saying that the stock market, while it has been volatile in the last month or two, it would seem to me that volatility should tamp down a little bit based on the fact that jobs are actually growing and we're not in the slump that they thought we were.
I remember, yeah. Barack Obama famously said during Trump's campaign that there was no button you could push or no magic wand you could push to make the economy grow. Turns out you could. And it was pretty simple. As a matter of fact, there's a gigantic red button. You would have thought that Hillary Clinton would have noticed it. and it basically says cut taxes. But what it does, most people don't understand this. That button that says cut taxes will produce a lot of economic growth, but a button that just said no changes would also cause a tremendous growth in the economy, even if the taxes were high. Just the ability for a business owner to know that nothing's going to change for the next 2 years or 4 years or something allows that person to do some planning and make some serious decisions about whether or not he can afford an additional truck for the delivery, another branch for the restaurant, or so on. When during the Obama years, when taxes were constantly in fluctuation and they're getting hit with all these regulations and enormous things like Obamacare, you can't run a business in an environment that chaotic and make any attempt to grow. You've got to hoard your resources because you simply don't know. You might have the ability right now, as things are today, that I have the ability to maybe expand my business, hire a few extra people. But if I don't know what's coming down the pike and Monday I get an Obamacare mandate, that truck has to be sold again and that restaurant, it's a nightmare. So predictability is more important really than low taxes, but low taxes and predictability are terrific. So all of this, when you get right down to it, I've got in my wallet, I won't go to the trouble of pulling them out, but I've got in my wallet 2 pieces of paper right now. One of them is a $20 bill drawn on the United States Federal Reserve, and I have another piece of paper with a number and pictures printed on it that is from I want to say it's Zimbabwe. I don't remember. You'd think I would know. Anyway, in my pocket right now, I have a $1 trillion bill. $1 trillion bill. And I'm not joking. And it's not a gag. It's actual money. I have $1 trillion plus $20. I got $1.20 trillion on me, at least right now. I never leave the house without $1 trillion. You never know what could happen. So the reason I bring this up, Scott, is because if you put the $1 trillion bill down and you put the $20 bill down anywhere in the world, everybody's going to pick up the $20 bill and they're going to leave the $1 trillion bill. And the reason they're going to do that is because that piece of paper, and that's all it is, it's a piece of paper with a picture and a number on it. That piece of paper represents confidence that it can be exchanged for something of value. So when you get right down to it, all of the economy, the entire idea of economics, but the entire economy as we understand it, American economy, world economy, is essentially a series of beliefs and in the promise of the exchange. All economic growth is based on people having confidence in this system, and economic decline is usually caused by people losing confidence in this system. So the reason that this job report is so important is, as you were nibbling around the edges of this. In fact, not nibbling, you were pretty much right on it. It's astonishing to think that a good job report could actually do something such as preempt a recession, let's say. But that in fact is exactly what it seems to be able to do. I'm not saying it's going to, but when you have an expectation of bad news and people's confidence in that little piece of paper, and of course I'm talking about electronic digits as well as so on, when people's confidence about the future and confidence about the economic future starts to decline, and then there's an unexpectedly sharp note, a good note, an uptick, people's attitudes begin to think, well, maybe it's not as bad as I thought, and we think that people's attitudes follow the market, but in point of fact, it's the market that follows people's attitude, because the market is inert. The market doesn't make its own decisions. The economic market, not just the stock market, doesn't buy things. People buy things, and people buy things based on how they feel about whether they can afford it, can they pay it off, how are we going to be looking in a year, that kind of thing. So anything that increases the confidence of the average American, forget the business owners, anything that increases their confidence has a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people are more confident about the future because the job growth numbers are really good, not only do you have more people with jobs coming into the market, but you also have a sense that, so maybe this bad news that we thought was coming isn't coming. And it seems to me as an outsider, and I don't have any degree in economics, which is why I think I can speak so expertly about this subject, frankly, because it seems to me the more educated about economics you are, the less you understand the essentials of why people buy and sell things. But it seems to me that you can, in fact, have a self-fulfilling prophecy, both upwards and downwards, depending on the quality of the news. And if it were up to me, again, no, I don't want anybody to feel I'm being insensitive to losses they may have taken in the stock market. This is a significant hit on a lot of people, and I'm not trying to minimize that in any way. But if I had to pick between a rocketing stock market and a stagnant or slightly decreasing employment rate versus a vigorous employment rate growth and an erratic stock market, I would go with B.
Well, no doubt this is good news for Democrats, because they're going to claim on the one hand that when the economy is bad, they need to spend more money at the federal government level. And when the economy is good, we've got more money to spend at the federal government level. So one way or the other, Nancy Pelosi's House of Representatives is going to be on a tear in 2019. And Bill Whittle will be following it all the way and commenting on it as we go. We appreciate the members at BillWhittle.com that make this show possible. If you'd like to become one of them, just go to BillWhittle.com and click that Become a Member link. You can decide what level you want to contribute and join the citizen producers who make this show possible. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Bill Whittle Now a reality.